Last video, we learned what inequalities mean. But knowing the symbols is only half the story. Because in exams, you'll often be asked to represent inequalities on a number line. And that's where many students get confused. When do you use an open circle or a closed circle? Which direction should the arrow point? And what does infinity really mean? In this lesson, I'll break everything down step by step. And by the end, graphing inequalities will feel straightforward. Let's get started. Graphing inequalities means showing all possible values of x on a number line. We use circles to show whether a number is included or excluded. And we use arrows to show the direction in which the values continue. Let's start with the four basic patterns. An open circle with an arrow pointing to the right represents x is greater than a number. An open circle with an arrow pointing to the left represents x is less than a number. A closed circle with an arrow pointing to the right represents x is greater than or equal to a number. A closed circle with an arrow pointing to the left represents x is less than or equal to a number. Once you understand these four patterns, you can graph most inequalities with confidence. Now let's see how these work on a number line. Example 1. X is greater than 3. This means x can be any number greater than 3. Since 3 is not included, we draw an open circle at 3, and because the values are greater than 3, we draw the arrow to the right. Example 2. X is less than -2. This means x can be any number smaller than -2. Since -2 is not included, we draw an open circle at -2. And because the values are less than -2, we draw the arrow to the left. Example 3. X is less than or equal to 5 because of the words or equal to, the number 5 is included. So we draw a closed circle at 5. And because the values are less than 5, we draw the arrow to the left. Example 4. X is greater than or equal to 6. Since 6 is included, we draw a closed circle at 6. And because the values are greater than 6, we draw the arrow to the right. In the previous video, I explained inequality symbols and how to recognize them easily. I've dropped the link to the playlist in the description below. Now that you know how to represent inequalities, let's learn how to read them from a graph. To read any graph, ask yourself these two questions. First, is the circle open or closed? Second, which direction does the arrow point? Let's take a few examples. In this example, we have an open circle at 4. This means 4 is not included. And the arrow is pointing to the right, which means it is greater than. Therefore, the inequality is x is greater than 4. Another example. We have an open circle at -1. This means -1 is not included. And the arrow is pointing to the left, meaning it is less than. So, the inequality is x is less than -1. Another example. We have a closed circle at 10. This means 10 is included. And the arrow is pointing to the left, which means less than. So, the inequality is x is less than or equal to 10. Again, we have a closed circle at -5, meaning -5 is included. And the arrow is pointing to the right, which shows greater than. So the inequality is x is greater than or equal to -5. Some graphs can look this way, where we have an open circle at -3 and a closed circle at 6 with a straight line connecting the two circles. This means x is between -3 and 6. The open circle at -3 means -3 is not included. And the closed circle at 6 means 6 is included. This straight line shows that every value between the two numbers is part of the solution. So the inequality is -3 less than x, and x less than or equal to 6. One more example on this, so you can fully understand it. Here, we have a closed circle at 1, and a closed circle at 7, with a straight line connecting the two circles. So, this means x is between 1 and 7. Because the circles are closed at both ends, it means 1 and 7 are included. This straight line shows that every value between 1 and 7 is part of the solution. So the inequality is 1 less than or equal to x, and x less than or equal to 7. Now you can graph inequalities on a number line, and also read inequalities directly from a graph. Just to go over what we have learnt. Use an open circle when the endpoint is not included. Use a closed circle when the endpoint is included. Draw the arrow to the right for greater values. Draw the arrow to the left for smaller values. To read a graph, first identify the circle, then follow the direction of the arrow. In our next lesson, I will be teaching more on compound inequalities and how to represent them on a graph, and also teach about interval notation. How to fully understand when to use brackets or parentheses. If this lesson helped you, kindly share it so others can benefit from it. Like and subscribe too, and I'll see you in the next lesson.